I'm going to get as many calls on the air as I can, like I do every day, including James. Morning.
How are you?
Yet another rental scam. Can you explain it all to us, please?
Yeah, I've been trying to rent a property for myself and my daughters, and I was on Daft the other day, I won't mention where. So it just, the same thing. When it looks too good to be true, it probably is. So anyway, I contacted the people, and the man, whoever dealing on the other side, said, send me your passport details and your copy of your utility bill, and we'll take it a bit further. So that sort of wave flags then, because most normal people wouldn't look for that, So I drove to the property and I knocked on the door and I asked the girl if it was a house for rent, and it was news to her, obviously. So she rang the guards, and the guards said that there was a bit of a thing going on at the moment,
when you were on Daft and you saw the property being advertised, right? You saw the outside of the property. Did you see all the rooms inside up on Daft as well?
No, it was only the outside, but, sometimes when they put up 5 photographs anyway, they to be sketchy enough, a lot of the places, a lot of the landlords would say. But this was...
So you just got a photograph from Google Maps or something, do you think?
Yeah, I would think, well, you know what, no, where the property is in Mayfield, it didn't even, I actually know the area, so it didn't even look like the property, but I answered anyway, because sometimes the agencies, especially, will put up the same picture all the time, especially if it's a block of apartments, and they'll just say, another one of these has come up, but it'll be the same front pictures, if you know what I mean.
And what attracted you to it? Was the rental price low or something?
Well, yeah. No. At this stage, no, because I'm black and blue. I would take any place anywhere within reason, obviously, for myself and my kids, right? But I think there's a lot of people in the same boat. What actually waved the flag to me was the guy says in his description that electricity is free as well. They're like, no matter where you went, you wouldn't get free electricity, So the rent is still around the €1,400 to €1,500.
Yeah, it's saucy enough,
which would be standard enough, yeah. So, so I drove up to the girl. Just, you know what now, my thing to her was, when I met her, a nice lady, I don't even know the girl's name, I just said, your problem is going to be, if this is an ID scam, they're going to come back to your house. If I send my passport, and which people will be vulnerable enough to do. And I'll tell you why, because it's so hard to get anywhere now. You're trying to stay one step ahead of the posse,
They'll be calling to the house, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so then if I give my passport and ID, and then all of a sudden my ID is scammed, so I'm obviously going to go back to the house that was advertised, assuming that that's the person. This is my thinking now. So I went to the girl. She was traumatized. She rang the guards. The guard said, come down. So I went down and I said, look, this is the WhatsApp thread here, of whatever. I said, I'm not sending my passport and utility bill over the phone. But they ask you, like, even the agencies, they ask you for PPS numbers, telephone numbers, dates of birth, a lot of the GDPR stuff that they probably shouldn't be asking, but they ask you. And if you don't fill in the form, you do not get a call back.
Who asks you for your PPS? The letting agents?
Yeah, the letting agents. Yeah, if you go to, I won't name them now, but you know them all anyway, but there's several of them. They send you out a tenancy letting application form that they use to break down who they're going to see view the house, and on that will be your name, your date of birth, your PPS number, who's moving in, where you work, how much you get. Most of them are now asking for a copy of a bank statement to prove that your address is there. And like in my case, I had 2 kids with me. The last people who rang me back and said I never put in my kids' CPS numbers. And I said, sure, why would I? Why would you want my children's CPS numbers? Anyway, so getting off topic.
No, you're not getting off topic, not at all. But are you assuming that in this case that this was identity theft if they wanted
this is identity
your passport, a utility bill?
Like, even to be fair to the, if you go to one of the letting agents and you're fortunate enough to get the property, they will require ID. But it's the specifics of this actual thing was, ensure you send me a copy of your passport with all the outlining corners identified as if you were applying for something, official yourself. And a utility bill. No, as I say, I won't name them, but one of the agencies that I was dealing with last week asked me for identification, but any form of identification, be it driver's license, identity card, passport, etc. But you know what now, it's like opening a bank account now. Just trying to get your name on the list.
Just for a viewing, even.
Just for a viewing, and then, and even at that, you send all this information, and nothing comes back.
Did anybody ever ask you for a deposit ahead of a viewing?
Well, this guy did as well. No, sorry, he didn't. One woman in a house above him, growing about her, said that before she'd even deal with me, I had to show her that I had the deposit and for a month's rent at the gate.
Show you the money? You had to show her the money?
Yeah, it was like Jerry Maguire job, yeah. When we went in, the place was like kept, it's still for rent, and I'm sure everybody who has in the same situation as me for the last 6 or 8 months will have heard of this woman.
Horror story.
Yeah,
horror story. Okay.
But you do what you have to do to try to get yourself in the door, and this seems to be like, this was even out of character for me to go to this woman's house yesterday. Just, I was going to meet somebody about a job anyway, and I said, I know the place well, I'll just swing up just in case it's somebody. And it was a young girl, she looked like just 30 odd years of age, and she was looking at me like I had 10 heads. And then when you knock at the door, you have the mask on as well. So
some people can feel intimidated, strange with the mask.
I was trying to stand back, and I said, look, just for your own peace of mind, ring the guards and just tell them. I said, because if somebody's scammed, this is where they're coming.
Okay, pal. Listen, thanks for taking the call, and good luck on the search.
No bother.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, and if anybody has a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom house in the north side that they're trying to get rid of, give me a ring.
I've Dave Whelan from First Choice Properties after the break, and I'm sure he's listening to this. Maybe he might be able to look into this case for you,
Yeah, okay.
All right, cheers, James. Back after the break.
The Neil Prendeville Show.
Dave Whelan from First Choice Property. Morning, Dave.
Morning, how are you keeping?
Good. First of all, on scams, right? And a typical one is you engage online, back and forth with emails. This character asks you to send on the first month's rent and the deposit with it, and then after a month you'll be met by somebody who'll give you the keys, kind of a thing. Do people fall for these kind of scams?
By the sounds of things, they do, Neil. I've read it, and I suppose it's all on a basis that it's second-hand stories that I've heard, or third-hand even, that people have been scammed. And I suppose the message that I would read from that is that it's very important to deal with regulated letting agencies. We're strictly managed by the Property Services Regulatory Authority.
Yeah, but that's all very well, but not everybody goes through an agency, and others are so desperate to get a property that they're responding to everything and anything that's put up.
That's why I'm saying I think it would be better to deal with a regulated entity. And I suppose from my experience, I heard someone on the radio recently to yourself that they were saying they couldn't find properties.
Yeah.
And the same day, I actually did viewings for a 1-bed apartment, a 3-bed house, and a 2-bed apartment, right? And that same day, I had 7 or 8 appointments for each property, and at each appointment that I was scheduled to have, I had 3 no showings, as in no showings whatsoever at the viewings, which was astonishing considering I had heard him out on the radio saying that he was trying to find a house for his friend, and he was looking here, there and everywhere for them. There isn't, in my experience, a huge shortage at the moment, but I do think that potential tenants need to be prepared. And the advice that I would give them is that, yes, similar to what that scam artist was looking for, what we are looking for as an agency is we're looking for information on a tenant who is, I suppose, willing to be vetted so that we're willing to rent to them. So, in my position, my main priority is to get a very good tenant for a house for the landlord that we represent. So the better prepared a tenant comes to us, the better presented that tenant is when they come to the viewing, the better chance they have of getting a long-term tenant.
So that involves giving a PPS number, a wage slip, a copy of your bank statement?
We wouldn't be quite that invasive. What we would look for, to arrange a viewing, what we're looking for is, because we are regulated, we have an anti-money laundering process that we have to adhere to, which includes gathering PPS number, photo ID and address verification. We look for those 3 items. We also look for a work reference, if applicable, and a previous landlord.
Do you take copies of all of that information?
Normally they're emailed to us by the client or by the potential tenant.
So forever, somebody's bank statement and PPS number.
No, we will tell tenants this, or potential tenants this, that from a GDPR point of view, the minute that they decide they don't want it to go to property, it is destroyed and deleted from our records. So we don't hold that data.
Okay.
But if we do have a tenant that engages with us long term and rents a property, we have those documents on file. So we know who's in the property. We have their PPS number. If there's an anti-money laundering inquiry through the revenue, etc., we can provide that information. And that falls under the regulation that we have to adhere to.
But, I mean, I'm astonished that you say words to the effect that there's not a shortage when I'm constantly dealing with people, and we just had an example there of James who's desperately looking for a 2-bedroom, perhaps even a 3-bedroom on the north side, and just can't get one.
Well, you can give him my number, Neil, because I think that we might have a unit coming available in 2 weeks' time in the north side. And if I can help him, I'll be more than happy to help him. Okay.
So I know I'm talking primarily this morning about rental. Yesterday morning it was about house purchasing and mortgage and things like that. But at the same time, I also hear from a lot who want to get a viewing, get on to the letting agents, not necessarily saying your good self. They send on all of the details and the information. They don't even get a response or a sorry, not this time. They just get completely ignored. Why would that be?
No, I don't know. I suppose there might be a sense of some agents cherry picking who they want to go into a property.
And who would that be? I mean, who is the perfect tenant?
I mean, as I said to you, what I look for in a tenant is someone who's prepared, i.e., they can give us the documents and that we're looking for, and they arrive at the viewing on time and they arrive well presented. You normally get a good feeling from someone if they're organised and if they give this, I suppose, a sense that they're clean and tidy, and that will be reflected when they move into a property.
Well, that's fair enough. I understand that. But do your clients who own the property specify no HAP?
Well, that's against the law, and to be quite honest with you, I'm a huge supporter of HAP. It's a good system.
But if somebody who wanted to rent their property to you told you that they don't want HAP, what would you then do? Or what would a letting agency do then?
I haven't had that experience yet, Neil, because I suppose when we engage with a client first day, we will outline the a basic rules and regulations as to what they have to adhere to. And accepting HAP is one of those things.
Okay.
So I haven't had landlords saying we won't accept HAP.
See, what I'm thinking is there a perfect tenant for a rental property, or indeed is the perfect rental to 4 people who are willing to all chip in 4 ways so that the owner of the property can get a much higher rent that they wouldn't get from a young couple starting out or a young couple with children?
Again, there are regulations there that if you try and overcharge what the market is, we're in a rent pressure zone in Cork City, which means that basically we can only put up the rent 4% every year. And if a landlord takes the chance of putting the rent up and not registering with the RTB, that's not what some private landlords might do. But through an agency, we don't do that because the tenant has a chance of recouping that money and getting the landlord prosecuted over the next 6 years. It's a chance they're taking, but some landlords, they'll call and collect cash from their tenants every week. That's not the model we follow.
Letting companies don't do that, but some direct landlords do, you're saying?
I think so. I mean, First Choice Property, as a letting agency, we don't do that. But you may have other agencies that do, and anecdotally, private landlords are doing it.
No, but what I'm seeing now is also rooms to let in houses. So there's more money for a landlord when letting by the room.
Well, again, it depends what regulations they're following or what they're not adhering to.
Do letting companies sell or rent rooms?
Reluctantly.
Yeah, okay. We've also been contacted by...
We do.
Yeah,
we do. And if we do, it's because that type of house is more of a house share arrangement. It is by the room, but each of those rooms will be registered with the RTB, so we are stuck to the rent pressure zone guidelines again.
As we're coming out of all of this now, and I've been contacted by a few families in the last few weeks and individuals whose landlords are selling up, or planning to sell up, and these misfortunes will be out on their ear because the restrictions on evictions have now been lifted, haven't they?
The notice periods that tenants get now, it has been extended and it's longer, depending on how long the tenants are in situ. And I suppose, looking at it, if someone's given 90 days notice to find a property, they really are being given enough time to find somewhere.
Aren't or are?
They are. I think if someone has 90 days to find a house, I think if you're prepared and you register online with Daft, you get your emails according to the type of properties that come up, you apply to them, you build a rapport with agents and tell them what you're looking for. We do this all the time. And most of the time, if we give notice to a tenant and if the landlord is selling, we will work with that tenant. We'll work them out to find somewhere else for them to live if we can, you know. But yes, houses are proving quite hard to get. They're not coming up as often as apartments. Your 3-bed, 4-bed family house, they are harder to get than your 1, 2 and 3-bed.
So are you suggesting that people should flip to an apartment then, rather than holding out for a tour?
No. I'd say, I think within 90 days, houses do come available. And they might even have a longer period than 90 days, right? But I think that the notice period now that people have got to move out for a property that's been sold. And let's bear in mind, this asset is owned by a landlord, and situations change. So landlords have a right to sell the property. You know, they've offered a tenancy to a tenant for the legal tenure of that period of time. And
no, not for the legal tenure if they're selling. You're out in your ear, full stop.
No, you're not. No, you're not out in your ear. A landlord cannot break a fixed-term tenancy. So let's say someone is...
You can break a fixed-term tenancy for selling the house.
No, you can't. Not if it's a fixed term. Once the fixed term has expired, and normally we would, if a tenant goes engaged with a landlord, they'll normally sign a 12-month lease. And after 12 months, there are 3 reasons why a landlord can end that tenancy.
I see, yeah.
Well, selling the property is one of those. And they have to give the adequate mandatory notice, which I'm saying should be enough. It's an unfortunate situation. It's stressful for the tenants because, yes, they have to pack up, they have to leave, and they have a period of uncertainty as to where they're going to find to live, can they afford the rent of the new property, etc. But when you have 90 days to do it, if you take it upon yourself to be organised and to look, on a daily basis, ring letting agencies, give them your details, and get yourself approved as a tenant before properties come available, you have a very good chance of getting ahead of the next person.
Okay, good words of advice. Thank you for that. As always, Dave Whelan with firstchoiceproperties.ie.
Neil Prendeville, the voice of Cork. Weekdays 9 to 12. Cork's Red FM. Red FM.